Our Joe Hinkie is there. We'll get to him in just a little bit, but Jeff, this is certainly going to be a day to remember, as so many people paying tribute, just talking so much about the life and the legacy that will be left behind. And Hank Aaron saying himself that he doesn't want this just to be about baseball, but also about his philanthropy, about giving back to the community and focus on education.
Yeah, there's so many moving parts to his legacy in Atlanta. And, you know, you're talking about, for many people, and I'm one of those, I just think his numbers are incomparable. I mean, I think he is the greatest player of the 20th century. You can make all of these arguments about this player or that player, more flashy, or played in New York, or had bigger moments with teams that were better than the Braves. But you take a look at how durable he was, how strong he was, how amazing he was in terms of his productivity offensively and defensively. You are hard-pressed to find anyone in the 150 years of Major League Baseball in the United States with numbers even close to Hank Aaron. It really is astonishing, Jennifer. And what's even more amazing than that is the fact that here's this guy who could have just rested entirely on his laurels and could have been an ex-baseball player, you know, showing up at baseball shows, card shows, signing autographs and all of that. You know, Mickey Mantle did a lot of that in his final years, and Mantle didn't live very long. He died at 63 in Dallas, Texas in the early 1990s, mid-1990s. But Aaron was more than that. I mean, he became so involved in the community, so involved in the country in terms of racial equity, in terms of trying to level the playing field for all Americans.
We did, and we did want to mention, we just saw Atlanta Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms taking a seat inside the sanctuary there. And Jeff, when you're talking about wanting to level the playing field, I think a lot of people have been looking into the life of Hank Aaron, and he talked a lot about Jackie Robinson and what an inspiration he was to him. And he told an interviewer at one point that when Jackie Robinson died, he felt like he had to take on that mantle of trying to work to get Black people not just on the playing field, but also into the coaching positions, also into the front offices there. And so that was also another aspect of him that took him and his legacy beyond just being a baseball player.
Yeah, absolutely, Jennifer. I'm looking at the schedule of what we are going to see in the hours ahead. Again, it's slated to begin at 1 o'clock. It's 12:36 right now, so we're about 24 minutes away. The expectation is it will go to about 3:30 or 3:45. I think it'll go significantly longer than that as we see some of these names that are in attendance. Bud Selig, the former baseball commissioner, his great friend of almost 70 years, will be in attendance to speak. Bud Selig spoke with Hank Aaron 2 or 3 times a week for, gosh, 60 or 70 years. I mean, their enduring friendship is something that is really an extraordinary thing. And they first met in Milwaukee when Bud Selig's father owned a Ford dealership there. And young Bud Selig was working as a salesman in the lot, and who comes to buy a new car, his first new car? It's Hank Aaron of the Milwaukee Braves. And Bud Selig sold his first car to Hank Aaron, and a friendship was born that, you know, those guys hung out together. They went to Packers games, they went to Browns games in the NFL. It was a marvelous friendship of which, you know, continued all the way to last week.
Yeah, a lot of folks talking about those fond memories. Let's take you now out to Joe Hinkie, who is live outside the Friendship Baptist Church and will be covering this remembrance funeral service for us today. Joe?
Well, Jennifer, as Jeff just mentioned moments ago, a little under a half hour to go until the service begins inside the church. Outside here, we're starting to see family, friends, and other guests arrive for the service. Aaron's wife for several decades, Billy Aaron, arrived moments ago along with her family. And we also saw former Atlanta Mayor and Ambassador Andrew Young go inside the church just minutes ago. I'll step out of the way here as we have more guests currently arriving in front of the church here. Yesterday, we heard from Atlanta Braves past and present as the Braves held a memorial service at Truist Park for Aaron. Aaron spent 21 seasons with the Braves between the team's time in Milwaukee and then their eventual move here to Atlanta. At today's funeral service for the Home Run King, we expect to see and hear from former President Bill Clinton, former Major League Baseball Commissioner Bud Selig, Ambassador Andrew Young, who I mentioned moments ago, and also Aaron's wife, Billy Aaron. In taped video recordings, we'll also hear from sportscaster Bob Costas and former President Jimmy Carter. Here are former Braves, Marquise Grissom, and the team's current manager, Brian Snitker, at Tuesday's memorial.
There's no other athlete that I know that had an impact on my life and many other kids right here in the city of Atlanta to get them to that next level.
I'll miss the friend, and the mentor that I had in my life.
And the schedule for today's service has this slated to go about 2.5 hours. But as Jeff mentioned, a lot of lifelong friends from Aaron expected to speak at today's service. I'm sure that they will have a lot of stories from his baseball life, his time as a civil rights icon, and also philanthropist, and all those stories. We'll have to see if they stick to that 2.5-hour schedule or if this gets drawn out much longer. And then, of course, after the service, we'll be following Aaron's processional to his final resting place. We'll send it back to you in studio.
All right, Joe, thank you. And again, that final resting place will be Southview Cemetery, historic place there. So many other major Atlanta icons and figures buried there. Taking a live look now inside the Friendship Baptist Church, where again that service is set to begin around 1, just about 20 minutes from now. This will be something that is unlike what we've seen before. We're having former President Bill Clinton. We'll have a message from former President Jimmy Carter, and we'll also have an Atlanta staple himself, Ambassador, former Atlanta Mayor Andrew Young, all giving remarks. And that just kind of shows you the breadth of the impact that Hank Aaron had, not only here in Atlanta, but across the country as well, Jeff.
Yeah, and there are a few other names too. Tom Johnson, the former president of CNN, was very close with Hank Aaron over the decades. He began as a newspaper man, of course, and was an associate of President Johnson back in the 1960s, no relation. Alan Tannenbaum also is going to share some reflections, and Alan Tannenbaum is an Atlanta attorney of which you probably do not know. But Alan Tannenbaum, for decades, was Hank Aaron's agent and attorney and advisor and great confidant. Two guys that had a wonderful friendship for decades here in Atlanta. And when you think about Hank Aaron, you think about Alan Tannenbaum. They really were a team and did so much good in this community, whether it was Chasing the Dream Foundation or the Technic School that Mr. Aaron had put money in to help with kids who needed some help, who didn't have any cash to continue and further their education. So we're going to hear from them as well. Terry McGurk, who is the chairman of the Atlanta Braves, we heard him yesterday, and it is going to be a very emotional service. I'm really looking forward to hearing from Bud Selig and also Dr. Valerie Montgomery Rice, who is the president and dean of the Morehouse School of Medicine. Again, Hank Aaron and Mrs. Aaron threw a lot of money into programs there to try and help kids who really would not have been able to further their education without the Aarons.
Yeah, Jeff, and as you talk about that, I think a lot of people will be looking forward to hearing from those, and that just is a testament to a life well lived. Hank Aaron's death leaving a void in the baseball world for sure, but going forward, it will be felt mostly in the city of Atlanta and the state of Georgia.
A remarkable life. Here is a look back at the incomparable Hank Aaron. A man of accomplishment, a man of integrity. Any description of Hank Aaron begins with the staggering facts, the baseball numbers of his incomparable career. A 25-time All-Star, Hank Aaron hit over 24 home runs for 19 straight seasons, averaging 33 from 1955 through 1973. He drove in 100 runs 11 times and scored 100 runs 15 times. He won 2 batting titles and 3 Gold Gloves. His career records include most home runs, most runs batted in, total bases, extra base hits. He was also second in lifetime at bats and runs, third in games and hits, 9th in doubles, 11th in singles, tied for 14th in years of service. Hank Aaron holds more Major League batting records than anyone in the history of the game. And he amassed this unimaginable body of work with a style all his own, cool and understated. It became his trademark through National League ballparks of the 1950s, 60s, and 70s. Hank Aaron became the all-time home run champion and established the most Major League batting records via one of the most consistent offensive careers in baseball history.
I gave baseball everything that I had.
Hank Aaron also broke many racial and cultural barriers, but he was more. A civil rights pioneer who worked towards social justice all of his 86 years. A baseball executive with the Braves, he led the push for Chipper Jones, a businessman, a fast food restaurants, a luxury car dealership, an advocate for children. Mr. Aaron provided scholarships. Today, Hank Aaron is still impacting the community, lending his name and his support to young people. Henry Louis Aaron was one of 8 children born to Herbert and Estella Aaron in a poor community of Mobile. At 14, he decided to become a baseball player after hearing a speech by the immortal Jackie Robinson, who integrated Major League Baseball in 1947. Young Mr. Aaron played semi-pro ball while in high school. Then, with the Indianapolis Clowns of the Negro Baseball League, he joined the Boston Braves in 1952 and then played in Milwaukee in 1954.
Here's the pitch by Downing. Swinging. There's a drive.
The achievement Mr. Aaron is best known for is breaking Babe Ruth's record of 714 career home runs, which he did on April 8, 1974 inside Atlanta Fulton County Stadium when he hit his 715th home run in the 4th inning off Al Downing of the Dodgers.
You faced threats.
Oh yeah, many times, yes. Quite a few.
The chase was an ugly lesson in 20th century American racism. Death threats against Mr. Aaron, hate letters and cards, a misbehaving commissioner named Bowie Kuhn, so many moving parts of intolerance. I felt like when I was chasing Babe's record that the most important person that I had in mind was Jackie Robinson, he once said. I felt like he had been through so much on the field and did so many things that required me to be where I was.
Baseball has always been in my blood. You know, for some reason, I don't know why, you know, I always felt like I was in command.
It is in many ways as though Hank Aaron never retired, always relevant, always with us in Atlanta, like his baseball ability and influence without boundaries or limits.
What a life, what a legacy. We are taking another live look outside the Friendship Baptist Church, where we will shortly begin a celebration of life for Henry Louis Hank Aaron, quite the legend in baseball here in our city. Our coverage will continue in just a few moments.
Feeling a little routine?
Then mix it up. Morning Rush is different.
It's the fast-paced news you need
With all the energy of your morning coffee. Come see the difference on Morning Rush, weekdays on 11 Alive.
Weather can't run from the all-new 11 Alive Thunder Truck, a mobile weather center with the power and speed to chase down the strongest storms and bring you on-the-ground conditions. The 11 Alive Thunder Truck, sponsored by Landmark Dodge.
Here in Atlanta, bad weather means bad traffic. A few drops of rain could destroy a commute. But that's where my man Crash Clark comes in. I go street level, he goes next level. Together, we make sure you get to work on time. Morning Rush, weekdays 5 to 7 on 11 Alive. Hey, quick, open up your phone camera right now. Aim it at the screen to download 11 Alive's new and improved app. This QR code will take you right to the App Store or Google Play. One simple tap gives you enhanced radar, street level zoom, and severe weather alerts. It's just that easy. Atlanta roads are my thing. ITP, OTP, Ponce, Piedmont, all the peach trees. Combined with Chesley's street level forecast, that's a lot of tech and experience to help your commute.
Morning Rush, weekdays 5 to 7 on 11 Alive.
We're quite the combo.
Weather changes can make or break your day. That's why the 11 Alive Storm Trackers are always watching what's coming next, delivering accessible and accurate forecasts that prepare you, not scare you. For Storm Trackers, only on 11.
Everyone, and we are here on this Wednesday. I'm Jeff Hullinger along with Jennifer Bellamy, and we are remembering Hank Aaron, who passed away Thursday night, Friday morning, and the memories of this incredible man just seem to swirl wherever you go. I know I've been in Publix, Home Depot, gas stations, the QT. I've been stopped by so many people who have a story of his kindness, his decency, of signing an autograph, stories of kids on the South Side who were part of baseball teams who had raggedy uniforms that Aaron heard about, and he jumped in and bought them new uniforms. I mean, all kinds of these little stories like this that really define the whole of a man. And this community, his footprints are large. They loom everywhere, no matter where you go, whether it's in town, outside the perimeter, on the south side, DeKalb County, Fulton, Cherokee. Pick the county, pick the place, and in all probability, you'll find someone who has a story. My son is home this afternoon studying virtual on school, and so I went and got him some food. I stopped at a bakery, and a guy pulls out a picture of a baseball that his grandmother had gotten of Hank Aaron from 1968 at Atlanta Fulton County Stadium, with Aaron centered in the ball along with Ron Reed, who was the pitcher at the time. But it's stories like those, they're just everywhere. And it is the ultimate determination of a life well lived.
They are, and there are so many of those stories. I've seen them myself all over social media. And even when they're just minor, it's amazing to see the impact that they had on the people who are sharing them, because Hank Aaron just meant so much to them, whether they met
50
him
years
or not.
later, people are still talking about the stories of having an interaction with him. He was kind, he was decent, you know, a different time in America. And, you know, athletes are different now. It's just, it's a different world. But Henry Aaron, as Ambassador Andrew Young so nobly put over the weekend, led the Christian life. That's what he was. Put away all of these things about being this once in a generation, once in a lifetime, once in a century ball player. But he was a good Christian man who was kind to everyone.
Yeah, Ambassador Young set to speak at the funeral service today, and we had a chance to hear from him about his relationship and the person that Hank Aaron was.
And he shared some of Mr. Aaron's life and his courage and the lasting impact.
When you talk about good men and great men, good citizens, good Christians, loving husbands and family men, you got to think about Hank Aaron. He did a lot for democracy with his baseball bat.
Pitch by Downing, swinging. There's a drive into left center field. That ball is going to be out of here. It's gone.
Never saw him angry, even when they were harassing him. I think that those of us who survived the civil rights movement learned to walk through the valley of the shadow of death and fear no evil, because we had a sense of a life beyond this life. He didn't let anything intimidate him. He was fearless. It's what it means to be a classy human being. Has nothing to do with his sports ability, though it came from that, or his race, or his creed, but it was his spirit. And I think that spirit doesn't leave us.
And again, Ambassador Young, former mayor of Atlanta, expected to speak about an hour into the services today. He'll be followed by Braves chairman Terry McGuirk, and then we'll also hear from former presidents Jimmy Carter and Bill Clinton as well. So quite a who's who that will be speaking and delivering their remarks, their remembrances.
Has there ever been any human being more eloquent than Andrew Young? My goodness. He's so amazing.
He has a long memory, and he can tell you so much about so many people and so many things that have happened here in Atlanta. It's really remarkable.
I just am always amazed to listen to him frame where we live and how we've lived. And it always gives a perspective of which maybe I didn't think about. And I think a lot of people feel that. He is such an incredible man and person. Somebody needs to put their arms around him, keep him safe.
He's a treasure. And you know, Jeff, he was talking in that piece there just about what kind of a man Hank Aaron was. And I feel like a lot over the past few days we have heard people calling him just a gentleman. Somebody who was humble, who had a great spirit about him, who was willing to talk and was passionate about so many other people, about his community. And I think that really is a hallmark of somebody else. You know, oftentimes we talk about celebrities and they seem so untouchable, but for Hank Aaron to have this drive and desire not to just reach some, but to reach the masses of these young people and help their educations. He said that that's what he wanted to be remembered about him. He talked to our Alex Glaze about 2 years ago and said that he wanted to be remembered as somebody who helped someone go to college, somebody who helped somebody get through school. And that's amazing to have so many things that could be part of your legacy, that's really what you want people to focus on.
You know, we've seen so many pictures of Hank Aaron since his passing, and I have one on my Facebook page a viewer sent me kind of a yellowed picture from Atlanta Fulton County Stadium where Mr. Aaron is in his Braves uniform, and this little boy's about 8 or 9 wearing a Braves t-shirt, and he just has his arms around him, and it just made me think of his life and what he did here in Atlanta and around the country, and always touching children, always reaching out, seeing how he can help them. Didn't necessarily have to get credit for it with scholarships or just taking time for a photo that now has lived in perpetuity and will. I've looked at that picture a number of times over the last few days and thought, if there's one picture of this incredible life in the 20th century and into the new millennium, that's one that seems to sum up so many of the great aspects of Hank Aaron.
Yeah, a lot of talk about the philanthropy that we have seen throughout the life of Hank Aaron. The number 755, always attached to his name, the number of home runs in his career.
755 also became a goal for Mr. Aaron when he retired and started helping children around the country reach their dreams. Here's Joe Hankey with more.
The greatest thing, I know people think that the home runs, you get 755 home runs, but the greatest thing that I feel that the contribution of I made since I've been out of baseball was helping 755 kids in my foundation. That's Hank Aaron Chasing the Dream Foundation.
Hank Aaron talked with 11 Alive back in 2011 about his life after baseball. He reached his dreams as a ball player, and then in 1994, Hank and his wife Billy founded the Chasing the Dream Foundation. The goal, give scholarships to 755 children in need around the country. The Aarons reached their goal and then kept funding hundreds of more scholarships.
Such philanthropists, and not only do they give of their money, but their kindness.
Charmin Goins is the CEO of the YWCA of Greater Atlanta. She calls the Aarons close friends and neighbors, known for always giving back, especially to fund a child's dream or education.
Countless children out there who are now adults now, I'm sure, who are where they are now because of Hank Aaron.
When you think about Hank Aaron, you think of a priceless individual. He is one of the most iconic figures in the history of America. But for Boys and Girls Clubs, he's just Hank and our hero.
Frank Sanchez with the Boys and Girls Club of America says Aaron served on the organization's board of governors, and in 2007, Major League Baseball, with Aaron's support, invested $2 million to award scholarships every year through Chasing the Dream to Boys and Girls Club members. Aaron's goal, Sanchez says, was to remove barriers between as many children as possible and their dreams.
He would constantly tell our leadership that we have to continue to serve more kids, that the work we're doing is great, but for Hank, he wanted us to reach every kid possible.
Taking another live look back at Friendship Baptist Church, we see Atlanta Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms there speaking with former President Bill Clinton, who is expected to speak during today's services, maybe about an hour or so in.
So we're about 4 or 5 minutes away from the service beginning. Hank Aaron will be buried at Southview Cemetery, and Southview Cemetery is a very historic place in the life and times of the city. After the Civil War, African Americans had no place to be buried. They were not allowed in white cemeteries. So in 1886, 9 black businessmen came together and they purchased this parcel of land, and they began this cemetery. And it is a cemetery of, if you're looking for a history of Atlanta, post the Civil War, you begin at Southview. Walking around through Southview, you see presidents of Morehouse that are buried there, Buffalo soldiers. It is an extraordinary place to really get a sense of who we are as a city and how we developed.
And I think just the story of Southview in and of itself is incredible, to talk about how we got to be in a place where we needed it, and those people came together because they could not bury their loved ones in a respectful and a dignified manner.
No, there's no place to bury them.
Exactly, and that's why Southview came into existence, and it's so fitting that Hank Aaron will be buried there, just another person in Atlanta's long legacy. And as we look and talk back about his life and the things that he has done and the impact that he's had on our city, it's certainly amazing. We see Andrew Young there. Again, he will be speaking today, ambassador, former mayor of Atlanta. And again, just speaks so much to the legacy that Hank Aaron leaves behind. So many people, so many lives that he touched. And again, I just have to say, I think it's so fitting that he will be laid to rest finally there at Southview.
When I got to Atlanta I don't know, maybe about toward 40 years ago, the city was defined by many of these people that have passed this year. Reverend Lowry, C.T. Vivian, yes. Congressman Lewis, Hank Aaron, Phil Necro, who came with the Braves in 1966, who had such a giant footprint on thousands and thousands of charity events that he was a part of over the decades. Don Sutton, the Hall of Famer, who has died in the last couple of weeks. But we have been touched by so much death over the last year, in between COVID and certainly men growing older, and mortality impacts all of us. But it has given great pause for reflection about the changing of the guard in the city, and those people who have been rocks, the rocks of Gibraltar in this community, when things were trouble, when things were bad, and we needed wise counsel and wise brokers of peace and smarts. These men were always it. They were the wise elders, and now they are not here anymore. And where we go from here as a city and as a community is one I think that we all worry about.
I know, what a generation. It really does make you pause and reflect on the lives that these people have lived and what we do next, where we go from here. And when we think about Hank Aaron, a lot of people talk about what he endured as he chased that home run record, what he faced traveling with police, having all of that hate mail, not even being able to open some of the mail, the trickle down of the impact that it had on his daughter.
His daughter was in college at the time, and she could not leave campus for fear that violence might await somewhere outside of the campus of where she was attending. I mean, the cruel racism of America is something that touched Hank Aaron's life, so many years, so many decades. Those angry, nasty, virulent, racist letters that he received during the chase against Babe Ruth.
That he held on to.
Still in his home. And over the decades, he would go through them just to remind himself of how far he had come and what he had accomplished in his life. And I think young people look back and go, wow, how could that have been that big of a deal? Well, the home run has always signified something very large in American life, and it was held by a white man in a sport that dwarfed everything else. The NBA and the NFL are recent additions to the pop culture scene. Major League Baseball at the time that Hank Aaron was playing throughout his career was not only bigger than baseball and football and college football, but it was like 10 times bigger. It was a part of American life, of which baseball is no longer. Baseball has been marginalized. Maybe it's on its way to becoming a niche sport in the generations ahead. They have to figure that out. But baseball, when Hank Aaron played it, defined this country in ways large and small.
But I think a lot of folks are reflecting, when you talk about what he endured, a lot of folks are reflecting on what could have been. How much greater could he have been had he not been dealing with having to go out of the back of the stadium, with having to deal with these letters and the vitriol that so many across our nation had to deal with during that time. I think that just the fact that Hank Aaron moved on without bitterness, without holding on to that, is amazing in and of itself. And we just see the love that he still had for people, all people, in the desire that was instilled in him to focus on other things, on greater achievements, despite what he had to go through.
Look, when the Braves moved here from Milwaukee in 1966, hotels were segregated. I mean, one of the great concerns in Major League Baseball of putting a team in the South, in Atlanta, where Atlanta was booming, I mean, it was just starting to explode in terms of being a city of consequence and merit and importance, was the fact that segregation was such that there was no place that teams could stay. And it was something that greatly concerned the NFL as well about expansion. As we take a look at the church, we are minutes away and seeing more people begin to trickle into the pews. But you think about what Hank Aaron experienced above and beyond that. When he learns that he's coming to Atlanta in 1966, that's really challenging stuff, above and beyond just coming as a ball player or playing in another city. Playing in Atlanta in 1966 as a black man was something that was very complicated and full of a lot of pitfalls.
Yeah, I believe I heard him say that it was about $100 that made the difference and brought him here to Atlanta.
As opposed to the Giants.
Yeah. Again, we are watching what looks like the processional beginning. We know this service was set to begin around 1 o'clock, and so it looks like they're fairly close to being on schedule right now with what appears to be the processional. We have heard the organal prelude that has been going on, and you see a lot of empty pews there. That is because they are trying to be respectful of COVID-19 guidelines and protocols. You see the masks on people right there. We understand that they will be trying to maintain social distancing. And prior to people entering today, there were temperature checks that were being taken. We know that we have already seen Atlanta Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms, as well as former Mayor and Ambassador Andrew Young. We have also seen President Bill Clinton, and again, we are starting to see more people who are arriving into this sanctuary here at Friendship Baptist Church.
Right there at the front of your screen there in the glasses is Dusty Baker, who is the baseball manager of the Houston Astros, former star player with the Los Angeles Dodgers, one of the closest friends to Hank Aaron anywhere. Dusty Baker has led an amazing baseball life as a player, as a manager, as an influencer, as a social pioneer as well. And he spoke yesterday via tape. He was unable to get to Atlanta because of connections, but he said it was impossible for him to comprehend the notion that Hank Aaron was no longer here, that he looked forward to seeing him in heaven, and that just really didn't want to think about a life without him. There's Alan Tannenbaum right there, his longtime attorney and agent and confidant. Bill Clinton, as you can see, with his mask on, standing at the podium as we are just minutes away from this beginning.
And Jeff, you see the large A there, the Atlanta Braves A, done up in flowers right there at the front of the sanctuary as well. Again, it looks like a large amount of people. We understand that they're about limited to about 50 who will be in attendance today, but slowly making their way into the sanctuary. There are pictures that are being shown in a video format over on the screens on the sides of the chapel. And again, we are expecting to hear from a lot of people, including grandchildren of Hank Aaron. We'll hear some reflections and remembrances from those family members as well. And, you know, during yesterday's memorial service out at Truist Park, we heard people say thank you for sharing Hank Aaron with us. And I think that that is just a special thing for a family to hear, that we know and we recognize that you did have to share this larger-than-life figure with the rest of the world. And they thank them for that during that memorial service yesterday.
Yeah, you're right, Jennifer. You know, everybody has a story. I have my own stories over the years of interactions with Mr. Aaron. In the early 1990s, I was asked to, on behalf of the governor, to present the 20th anniversary proclamation of the state of Georgia to Hank Aaron at a downtown Atlanta hotel. It was April 8th, 1994, exactly 20 years after hitting 715 at Atlanta Fulton County Stadium. And the proclamation I had to read in public, and the proclamation looked like the Magna Carta. It was, you know, it spoke of his accomplishments. So I was reading it and reading it and reading it, and I look over my shoulder, I hear someone laughing. It's Hank Aaron who was laughing and says quietly, "Hurry it up, Jeff. Hurry, hurry it up." And such a great sense of humor. You know, he was always had self-awareness that, you know, he was not regal in demeanor. He was just like everybody else in many ways, and that was part of his allure.
Yeah. Let's take a few minutes to listen in on that service right now.
Peace I leave with you. My peace I give unto you. Not as the world giveth I unto you. Therefore let not your heart be troubled, and neither let it be afraid. For who shall separate us from the love of Christ? Shall tribulation, or distress, or persecution, or famine, or nakedness, or peril, or sword? As it is written, for thy sake we are killed all the day long. We are accounted as sheep for the slaughter. Nay, in all these things We are more than conquerors through him that loved us. For I am persuaded that neither death nor life, nor angels, nor principalities, nor powers, nor things present, nor things to come, nor height, nor depth, nor any other creature shall be able to separate us from the love of God, which is in Christ Jesus. For the eyes of the Lord are upon the righteous, and his ears are open to their cry. The Lord is nigh unto them that are of a broken heart, and saveth such that be of a contrite spirit. Many are the afflictions of the righteous, but the Lord delivereth him out of them all. The Lord redeemeth the soul of his servants, and none of them that trust in him shall be desolate. And I saw a new heaven, said John, and a new earth. For the first heaven and the first earth were passed away, and there was no more sea. And I, John, saw the holy city, the new Jerusalem, coming down from God out of heaven, prepared as a bride adorned for her husband. And I heard a great voice out of heaven, saying, Behold, the tabernacle of God is with men, and he will dwell with them, and they shall be his people, and God himself shall be with them, and he shall be their God. And God's self, shall wipe away all tears from their eyes, and there shall be no more death. There shall be no more sorrow. There shall be no more crying. Neither shall there be any more pain, for the former things are passed away. And he that sat upon the throne, he said, Behold, I make all things new. He that overcometh shall inherit all things, and I will be his God, and Hank shall be my son. You may be seated. In the passing of Henry Louis Aaron, something vast and noble has passed from among us. It is as if a mighty oak has fallen, leaving a gaping and glaring void on the horizon where its gallant place in life once stood. Today, therefore, in humble surrender to a sovereign will, we pause with his wife, Billy, their children, their grandchildren, the rest of the members of this precious family, friends, and fans by the tens of thousands from across this nation and around the world. We pause this afternoon to bear witness to the passing of an era and to celebrate, and to celebrate, and to celebrate the faith of this iconic marvel from Mobile. And so we welcome you in paying homage to this brilliant bridge builder who leveraged a great American pastime to further the perfection of a union that was past time. In celebration then of his love for field and faith, humanity and Christ, the virtual Black operatic chorus shall now lead in the singing of Lift Every Voice under the direction of Damian Sneed, after which the invocation will be offered by a dear friend, the Reverend Dr. Otis Moss Jr., Pastor Emeritus of Olivet Institutional Baptist Church. And following the invocation, Hank's beloved grandchildren whom he adored, Victor, Emily, and Raynell, will share in the reading of the Holy Scripture and select quotes from their grandfather.
Let us pray. Eternal God, in whom we live, move, and have our being, we give you thanks and praise your name for the gift of your servant, our friend, brother, husband, father, servant, leader, achiever. We thank you for Henry Hank Aaron. We praise your name for giving him all that he needed to face the dangers, toils, and indescribable opposition. And in all of these brutal circumstances, he grew better and better and greater, and never throughout his 80+ years, he would not stop giving and lifting and guiding and contributing to others according to your word, your wisdom, and your guidance. We thank you that he was forever a candle in the dark. We thank you that all of the ugliness he faced in life, he kept lighting candles of beauty, faith, courage, service. We thank you for the life of Henry Hank Aaron and Billy Aaron, giving and giving and serving. We ask your blessings upon the Aaron family and that wider family throughout the nation and the world. We praise your name, O God, that by your eternal presence, your grace is greater than our grief, and your power is greater than our pain. And, oh God, we thank you for a gift, a person, a servant whose life was and is indeed stronger than death. Help us, O God, day by day, to keep telling in our own time and space the great story of Henry Aaron. Bless this family. Hear our prayer. Incline your ear unto us and grant us all we need for the living of these days and all that is coming tomorrow. In the name of our Redeemer, Liberator, and Savior, Jesus the Christ. Amen.
Isaiah chapter 40, 28 through 31. Have you not known? Have you not heard? The Lord is the everlasting God, the creator of the ends of the earth. He does not faint or grow weary. His understanding is unsearchable. He gives power to the faint, and to him who has no might, he increases strength. Even youths shall faint and be weary, and young men shall fall exhausted. But they who wait for the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings like eagles. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not faint.
A reading from Hebrews chapter 12, verses 1 through 3. Therefore, since we are surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses, let us also lay aside every weight and sin which clings so closely. And let us run with perseverance the race that is set before us. Looking to Jesus, the pioneer and perfecter of our faith, who for the joy that was set before him endured the cross, despising the shame, and is seated at the right hand of the throne of God. Consider him who endured from sinners such hostility against himself, so that you may not grow weary or faint-hearted.
Good evening. Today I wanted to share with you 4 quotes from my grandfather that will stick with me for the rest of my life. This one was actually in the paper just a few days ago. My wife Billy and I give a lot, but that's what we're here to do. I just feel like nothing that we have belongs to us. It was given to us by God. And when we leave here, I don't know of anybody who will go with a casket full of money. So why not let somebody else enjoy what we've been fortunate enough to accumulate? The second quote is, I'm hoping someday that some kid, black or white, hits more home runs than myself. Whoever it shall be, I will be pulling for them. The third quote, I'm not concerned about how I am perceived as a baseball player. I am concerned about how I am thought of as a human being. And the fourth and last quote would best be found in a little shop in Savannah that says, I don't want them to forget Babe Ruth. I just want them to remember me. Grandfather, thank you for your love and your guidance, and I'll miss you every day.
Give me Jesus, give me Jesus, you may have all this world, give me Jesus. Dark midnight was my cry. Dark midnight was my cry. Dark midnight was my cry. Give me Jesus. Give me Jesus. Give me Jesus. You may have all this world. Give me Jesus. Just about the break of day, just about the break of day, just about the break of day, give me Jesus, give me Jesus, give me Jesus. You may have all this world, give me Jesus.
Janae Brown for that moving musical tribute. We appreciate, along with the family, those who are contributing to this service of celebration in sacred song, in spoken word, and now with their remembrances. We will commence our reflections with Tom Moorhead, former president and CEO of Sterling Motor Cars, Bud Selig, baseball commissioner emeritus, and Dr. Valerie Montgomery Rice, the president and dean of the Morehouse School of Medicine. Following a musical tribute by Mr. Timothy Miller, additional reflections will be provided by Bob Costas, sportcaster and Hall of Fame announcer, Tom Johnson, the former president of CNN, and Alan Tannenbaum, the attorney and secretary of the Hank Aaron Chasing the Dream Foundation, and then Terry McGurk of the Atlanta Braves chairman will come in that order.
To their family, assembled dignitaries and friends, Billy, I want to thank you for this honor to talk about my friend. 7:15, 7:55, numbers that we all know and remember. (1998). I want to ask all of you to think back to that year and remember one. In 1998, the luxury automobile industry had one African-American dealer. Henry Ed Fitzpatrick and I were the first luxury BMW dealers of color in America. Henry opened his store as the first, 30 days before I opened mine. But as you all know, Henry was not driven by being first. He was motivated by the fact that he wanted the industry to change its complexion. And he wanted that complexion to look like individuals like the three of us. We made a pact, and when we made that pact, I will never forget that Henry said that I want us to have general managers in our store that look like us. It took us 2 years to build those dealerships, but by the time we opened those doors, each one of us had general managers that looked like us. But Henry was not satisfied, nor were we. And he said, we have to put technicians and other managers in our stores. At that time, a technician could make $150,000 a year. Henry said, I have a young lady from Mobile, Alabama, that will be the first technician in my store. That was what he was most proud of. Because of that, he felt that it was changing the complexion of the dealerships. That was important to Henry Aaron, the brother that I knew. Henry and I became inseparable. If you would see one, you'd see the other. We would talk every week about changing the complexion of the dealership. I truly hope that we made a difference and we changed the way dealerships look today. And for all of the individuals who now owe their positions to my brother, it has certainly made a better America for serving those that we cherish so much in this great industry of ours. And in closing, I want to say to my brother, the bookend that I had, the friend that I cherish, I'm looking forward to having that glass of wine from Dusty Baker, from Henry Aaron, and Tom Moorhead's winery
someday. I know we will be smiling when we all have that toast. Thank you.
Billy, Sue and I extend to you, your family, and your friends our love and our deepest sympathies. All of us here today share your profound sadness. I know Commissioner Manfred was here with the Braves people yesterday in a beautiful, beautiful ceremony, and he joins me in all of this. Henry and I were great friends for more than 62 years. In my humble opinion, he was no doubt the greatest player of our generation. But more important, he was a great and wonderful human being. Neither fame or fortune changed his extraordinary kindness and empathy, which led to his greatness off the field. His impact not only on baseball, but on all of America will never be forgotten. I remember when Henry first came to Milwaukee in 1954. It was the Braves' second season. He made an immediate impact as a 20-year-old, hitting .280 with 13 home runs, but that was only a hint of what was to come. One of my fondest and most memorable moments in my long career occurred at County Stadium on September 23rd, 1957. The Braves and the St. Louis Cardinals were locked in a very close race for the National League pennant. That night, the Braves had the opportunity to clinch the pennant with a victory. The only ticket I could get was an obstructed view seat in the bleachers behind a big metal post. But what a game. It was tied going into the bottom of the 11th inning when Henry came to the plate and hit a laser to center field. Cardinal outfielder Wally Moon went to the wall, had no chance. Home run, game over, Braves win the pennant. Braves go to the World Series. The fans went wild and so did the Braves. It was an incredible celebration. The image of the great Aaron, deliriously happy, being hoisted on the shoulders of his teammates and being carried off the field is indelibly imprinted in my memory. The next day, the New York Times published a photograph on its front page that juxtaposed the ironic contrast of white man carrying a black man off the field in Milwaukee with a photograph taken in Little Rock, Arkansas, where Governor Orville Faubus, white troops were battling black students who were merely trying to go to school. The comparison between the ideals being shown by Henry's place in baseball compared to the reprehensible politics of race in Little Rock could not have been more clear. Henry and I became friends in 1958. We were both big football fans and we went to Packer games together. The only time we were on opposite sides is when the Packers played Henry's beloved Cleveland Browns. We continued our friendship after the Braves moved to Atlanta. Throughout my years in baseball, I often said that baseball was a social institution with important social responsibilities. And of course, a great example of that was Jackie Robinson's entry into the game in 1947, which in many ways was baseball's most powerful and important moment. But another memorable and equally critical moment in baseball's social history occurred on April 8, 1974. Of course, that's the day Henry hit his 750th career home run, breaking the all-time record held by Babe Ruth. But this was so much more than just breaking a revered baseball record. The imagery of a black man being given a standing ovation in the Deep South was a powerful civil rights moment, but one for which there was a heavy price we paid. As you all know, Henry had received horrific hate mail and death threats. Over the years, Henry showed me some of the vile mail he received. The letters were shocking and to me demonstrated how only a person with his great inner strength and determination could overcome the kind of hate mail he did. In 1975, in the twilight of Henry's playing career, I made one of the most important decisions during my ownership of the Milwaukee Brewers, bringing Henry back to Milwaukee his final 2 years. He had a significant impact on our great young player, Rob Manel, and many other players. He was beloved in Milwaukee and throughout the state of Wisconsin as he was nationwide. He had a special relationship with our fans. That was particularly evident when my daughter Wendy and I asked him to help us convince Wisconsin legislators to support our plan for a new ballpark to keep the Brewers in Milwaukee. It was a thrill of a lifetime for many of them to have the opportunity to meet and chat with Henry. He spoke passionately about how important baseball was for the community and the state. We prevailed, and to this day, I'm not sure we would have without his efforts and goodwill. The best way we know to thank him was to expand our support for his and Billy's beloved Chasing the Dream Foundation, which provides financial assistance to underserved kids. Henry was such a wonderful ambassador for the game, was always willing to do whatever he could to make baseball better and, more importantly, more relevant. Over the years as a baseball commissioner, I had asked Henry to attend many events and dinners. He was always willing. One such event was a congressional hearing. The subject, steroids. I must say the members of Congress seemed to be much more interested in spending time with Henry than they were on the subject of steroids. It was a beautiful day in Washington, D.C. We talked about the hearing, about baseball, and about our long friendship. Along the way, he said, "Who would have imagined," this is 1958 when we met, all those years ago, that I, a black kid from Mobile, Alabama, would break Babe Ruth's home record, and you, a Jewish kid from Milwaukee, would become baseball commissioner. Well, Henry was a man of grace, a man of patience, a man of tolerance, remarkable dignity under many tough situations, integrity and loyalty. Henry, we're going to miss you. We'll never forget you, but we'll always be grateful for you showing all of us how to chase our dreams.
At Morehouse School of Medicine, Hank and Billy Suba Aaron have always been more than major supporters of the school, more than cherished friends of the institution. They are family. So today it is with great honor and sadness that I stand before you to pay tribute to Mr. Henry Louis Hank Aaron, a baseball legend, a man of character, integrity, generosity, and kindness. Kindness. An icon, a true icon. The world knows Hank Aaron as a trailblazing athlete, a man who faced incredible odds as he beat Babe Ruth's home run record. But to Morehouse School of Medicine, and to me, he was all that and much more. He was a stellar citizen, a business person, an advocate, a philanthropist, a mentor, and a friend. The Hank Aaron I know was incredibly generous with his time, his talent, and his treasure. He was devoted to Morehouse School of Medicine and our vision for health equity. That included a $3 million gift to expand our Hugh M. Gloucester Medical Education Building and to create the Billy Suba Aaron Student Pavilion, a fitting tribute to his wife and long-standing commitment to education and Morehouse School of Medicine. For once, this decision to honor her was not of her knowing. In fact, Mr. Aaron and I, along with my team, started scheming months before of a way to acknowledge her transformational work with the United Negro College Fund and the Phenomenal Women Scholarship at MSM. So I hosted a lunch at the Commerce Club with the two of them, myself, and my advancement lead, Benny Harris, cloaked in the opportunity to expand the scholarship. We had a presentation and we started to share a visual representation of a building that we were thinking about that would support our expanded class size. And as we were showing this visual tour, her name appears on the building, the Billy Suba Aaron Pavilion. And in only the way that Miss Aaron can do, she fluttered her eyes and said, "Oh, no, not for me." But in the same breath, she said, "How much will it cost?" I calmly said, $3 million, which will be matched by a foundation donor. Her eyes widened and the fluttering stopped. And she said, "Oh, no, no, Hank, that's too much." And while smiling all the while, he grabs her hand and says, "Billy, I got this." She stared, still not convinced, and he asked us to give them a moment. So we stepped out for no more than 5 minutes, and when we returned, she was beaming from ear to ear. I never knew what he said to her during that period of time until she shared it with me the other day. And guess what? You won't know what she said either, so that's between us. When we decided to honor Mr. Aaron with the Morehouse School of Medicine's Vanguard Award in 2017, there was no question that he deserved it. However, it wasn't just about the over $4 million that he and Ms. Aaron have given to support our students at MSM. It was also to acknowledge and applaud their generosity in so many other areas. The Chasing the Dream Foundation has served as the conduit for so many students to pursue their dreams by attending college. And while the financial gifts are important, it is the presence, it is his presence that has mattered. His presence, his smile, and his nod. Personally, I've had the honor of knowing Mr. Aaron and Mrs. Billy for many years. Starting in my college days, we were introduced by my college roommate and lifelong friend, his niece, Wanya Lucas. And when I returned to Atlanta and attended social and civic events, the Aarons always invited me and my husband, Melvin, to sit at their table. They treated us like family. They are family. When I would ask Mr. Aaron for help, support, or counsel, he would be there, smiling with his soft laugh. Because for all of his prominence, Mr. Aaron was a humble person who always reminded me to work hard and stick to my values. At one of the United Negro College Fund dinners, he said to me, "Stop worrying. Don't tell everybody what you're doing. Just show them. Just keep showing them." And that's how he lived every day of his life. So while Mr. Aaron will be remembered for all the home runs he hit, his true legacy is seen in the lives he's changed for the better. He used his gift to make a living and used the proceeds of that gift to make a life. He inspired us, motivated us, encouraged us, and set a shining example of what it means to be a good person. At Morehouse School of Medicine, we say the world needs what we do best. And I can tell you that this world needed what Henry Louis Hank Aaron did best. To Mrs. Billy Suber Aaron, to the Aaron children, your extended family and friends, we at Morehouse School of Medicine thank you for sharing him with us. We will miss him dearly.
If I can help somebody as I pass along, if I can cheer somebody with a word or song, if I can show somebody he's traveling wrong, then my living shall not be in vain. If I can do my duty as a Christian ought, if I can bring back beauty to a world upraught, if I can spread love's message that the Master taught, then my living shall not be in vain. Then my living shall not be in vain. Then my living shall not be in vain. If I can help somebody as I pass along, then my living shall not be in vain. Then my living shall not be in vain. Then my living shall not be in vain. If I can help somebody as I pass along, then and my living shall not be in vain. Lord, his living shall not be in vain.
Amen. Thank you, Brother Miller, for that marvelous rendition of His living shall not be in vain. We are grateful for all of the ways in which Hank helped to facilitate the journey of so many. For ease of access, we're going to invite the remaining contributors to share their reflections from the lectern just to my left. And at this time, we invite Mr. Bob Costas to come forward, share his remembrance.
Hello, everyone. I am honored and very appreciative that the wonderful Billy Aaron has asked me to be part of today's service, even if it is from a COVID-imposed distance, even if it is from a home studio rather than in person as I would prefer. But, as you can see, at least it is a studio with an Atlanta connection. There are so many things worthy of note about the remarkable and deeply admirable career and life of Henry Aaron. But in this case, time is limited, so I will limit my remarks to a single idea. Baseball, it has often been said, is a game of fathers and sons. Young Henry Aaron loved Herbert Aaron, but was pained by seeing the routine humiliations inflicted upon his father in the Jim Crow South. Pained to see him step off the sidewalk, eyes downcast, as he let a white person pass. The possible consequences of not doing so, even more terrible than the repeated indignities themselves. But a child still dreams, even when the dreams of his elders have given way to soul-crushing reality. When, as a boy, Henry told his dad he might want to grow up to be an airline pilot, the reply was, "Ain't no colored pilots." When Henry then said he dreamed of being a big league ball player, the response was, "Ain't no colored ball players." But then, on April 15th, 1947, when Henry Aaron was 13, Jackie Robinson played his first game as a Brooklyn Dodger. Maybe Henry's dad had been wrong. A year or so later, as the Dodgers barnstormed their way north from spring training in Florida up to Brooklyn, they stopped to play an exhibition game in Mobile. On the morning of the game, Jackie Robinson addressed a small group of black citizens. Henry Aaron skipped school to hear him speak. Later, at the ballpark, lacking the money for a ticket, Henry climbed a tree beyond the right field fence, and from that vantage point, got his first on-field look at his idol and inspiration. As it turned out, Herbert Aaron was mistaken. His son would not only become a big league ball player, he would become one of the very greatest of all time, a Mount Rushmore player. Taken alone, Henry Aaron's monumental achievements on the diamond would have made him unforgettable, made him elite even among Hall of Famers. But statistics and records alone don't account for the sustained and deeply appreciative applause that greeted Henry Aaron every summer at Cooperstown, for the respect that rose to reverence among fellow Hall of Famers, for the great admiration and regard in the statements this week from Presidents Carter, Clinton, Bush, Obama, and Biden. That wasn't only about chasing down Babe Ruth. It was about staring down some of the worst of America and prevailing as an enduring symbol of much of what can be best about America. About a man whose quiet courage and resolve, whose dignity and decency, whose abiding commitment to helping others made him more than a great ball player. Taken together, those qualities made him a genuinely great man and a great American. Jackie Robinson famously said, A life is not important except in the impact it has on other lives. More than 70 years ago, Jackie Robinson had no way of knowing the impact he would have on a kid who skipped school to hear him speak and climbed a tree to see him play. No way to know that that kid would go on to become, in many respects, the most significant baseball player since Jackie Robinson himself. That kid would take the baton from his idol and inspiration and carry it so well, so honorably, and for so long. And now that glorious race has been fully run. Rest in peace, Mr. Aaron. It has been an honor to know you.
Thank you, Billy Aaron, for asking me to speak today. I do so on behalf of my wife, Edwina, and so many others who cannot be in this church because of the terrible coronavirus pandemic. If not for that, we would surely be in the Brave Stadium with an overflowing crowd as we send Henry off today. Now, there's an angel among us who has lifted him to so many heights far above the baseball field. Billy Aaron is a superstar herself, a genuine force of nature, civil rights leader, head of the United Negro College Fund, former anchor woman and journalist, civic leader extraordinaire, role model for generations of young women and men. Her dynamic personality so complemented the quiet, more private nature of Henry. How fortunate he was to have Billy at his side. Thank you, Billy, for loving Henry so much as you did, and for enabling him to soar into the heavens, which is where he is today. Now, among the greatest athletes of the 20th century, my friend Henry Aaron always will rank first in my record book. He was a superstar with unblemished character and unquestioned integrity. He accomplished his triumphant feat of breaking Babe Ruth's home run record without the use of performance-enhancing drugs. He did it while racists threatened his life and the lives of his family. Then Henry and Billy created the Chasing the Dream Foundation so that highly promising young students could chase and hopefully reach their own lifetime dreams. If there ever was a finer human being on this planet than Henry, I do not know who that was. Humble, caring, courageous, loving, a quiet giant who was a fierce champion of civil rights and social justice. Henry exemplified what it means to be a genuine American hero. He never disappointed us on the field of play or off. Never, not even once. We have lost, and heaven has gained, one of the very best that our world contained. Thank you.
Henry Aaron, he was my brother, my Dutch uncle, a father, and one of my best friends. Henry Aaron, 2 words. Tikkun olam, 2 Hebrew words that teach us to perform acts of loving kindness. Henry Aaron, Tikkun olam, for me, they are synonymous. Henry performed his acts of loving kindness by helping others, and especially children. For him, it was and always has been about the kids. He and Billy created their Chasing the Dream Foundation to give youngsters the opportunity to chase their dreams, that initially helped 755 children chase their dreams to become athletes, musical artists, doctors, scientists, and educators. The foundation continues today to help at least 44 children each year chase their dreams with the help of the Boys and Girls Clubs forever. That foundation today has endowed scholarships at 18 mostly HBCUs throughout the country and helping more than 70 students this semester chase their dreams, and now every semester forever. Henry has left us with a gift of memories, but more important is what Henry and Billy have left the children forever. Their right to chase their dreams. He has taught us how to care for others before ourselves. And as we are all aware, whenever you called Henry, he ignored our first question of how he is doing, instead insisting on first knowing how we were doing, how our family was, how the grandkids are. And Billy is the same way. Yesterday, with everything going on, she called me to ask me to do something, but she first wanted to know if I was okay. I didn't answer that honestly because things are not okay, and I am sad. For Henry, it was always about others, not himself, about trying to find ways to support the foundation so that it could help the kids through the foundation. We never talked about how much he could charge for an appearance or a signing. It was how many more scholarships we could create and how many more kids we could help. He has taught me so much, by word, by deed, but most of all, by quiet action. In his own words, I hope I have set a pattern in life, not only for my kids, but for all the people in the world, that if you try a little harder, no matter how large an obstacle might be, you can succeed. I don't want any kid, no matter who they are, to think I can't do it. The fact is, they can do anything they want to do. 44 forever. Zichrono livracha. May his memory be for a blessing. Amen. And now, I would like you to hear from one of those original dream chaser kids, now a very grown-up kid, Kiana Lewis. In middle school, we supported her dream to become a harpist, then on to Fisk University to receive a psychology pre-med degree, Phi Beta Kappa, then a master's from Yale University in public health, and currently in the PhD program at Johns Hopkins University in adolescent health. Kiana.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Miss Aaron, the Aaron family, and other guests. My name is Kiana Joyce Marcellus Lewis, and I am a dream chaser. I represent a special body of highly motivated young people who are pursuing their dreams due to the financial support and encouragement provided by the Chasing the Dreams Foundation. Mr. Aaron believed every child should have the opportunity to strengthen their talents, so he and Mrs. Aaron used their money and influence to ensure young people with a passion for something did not face financial barriers to achieve their goals. Over 3 decades, they have supported thousands of young people across the country in fields such as music, sports, performing arts, and education. We are dream achievers. Mr. Aaron's investments early in life provided so many youth the springboard they needed to realize their dreams. For example, Leah Young knew at a young age that she had a passion for acting and now is a professional actress. Mason Morton started as a young boy with a natural talent for music, and now he is a premier harpist and tours with his group Sons of Serendip. Kari Joyner, who once dreamt of professionally playing the cello, is now a world-renowned cellist who has played for many dignitaries, including President Barack Obama. I met Mr. Aaron when I was 12 years old. After he learned I wanted to learn how to play the harp from my middle school music teacher, Mrs. Rosalind Lewis. Because of his philanthropy, I trained for years with the principal harpist of the Atlanta Symphony Orchestra. It was an experience few other youth, especially Black youth, could say they had at that time. At an early age, this experience confirmed for me that no opportunity was beyond my reach. It is one thing to be told that anything is possible, but it's completely different when you're shown. As my interests evolved, the Aaron support evolved as well, but their message stayed the same. Always chase your dreams. Throughout each stage of my academic and professional career, Mr. and Mrs. Aaron were always there. They provided me with unforgettable opportunities to travel and speak before civil rights icons, presidents, political figures, celebrities, and business moguls. Because of them, I have had dinner with legends who've spent their careers beating odds and breaking barriers. Mr. and Mrs. Aaron showed me what it means to surround yourself with people who have the drive to make their dreams a reality as well. While our relationship started as philanthropy, it evolved into family. The last time I saw Mr. Aaron was New Year's Eve, 2019. Every year, he and Mrs. Aaron host a New Year's Eve party where they invite family and friends to their home to reflect upon the past year and express hopes for the new year. That year was particularly special because I introduced him to my fiance. Like grandparents, Mr. and Mrs. Aaron asked him to stand before the crowd and introduce himself and state his intentions. They told him that I was a dream chaser, so he better be chasing his dreams as well. He later personally met Mr. Aaron for an official handshake of approval. That was truly special. History will remember Mr. Aaron as a record-breaking athlete, but I will always remember him as the man that opened countless doors for me and others to chase our dreams. We are dream multipliers. Today, in memory of our great benefactor, Henry Aaron, our special League of Dream Chasers commits itself to continuing the dream and achieving our greatness. We will also stoke the flames of unusual possibilities in the hearts and minds of other young people, much like they did us. Mr. Aaron, thank you for your example. Thank you for your support. And thank you for your love. Rest in peace.
Billy, today we have the honor of celebrating the life of the greatest Atlanta Brave, Henry Aaron. We're here because we all loved Hank, but we're really here because Hank loved all of us. Pretty amazing thought, and what an extraordinary man. Billy, I want to thank you for letting us all be here with you today and your family to join the fans from around the world who are just outpouring this unbelievable love for our hero, Hank. Of course, Hank would scold all of us for making such a fuss about him. He was so humble and self-effacing that it was unthinkable to him that we would have such a gathering after he was gone. But of course, no one deserves it more. So Hank, we always listen to your wise counsel, but this one time we may have to follow a different path so that we can all pay homage to what you have meant to every one of us. The common thread among most of the speakers today is that we all have forged a deep relationship with Hank and Billy through the game of baseball. I, of course, owe much to Henry for the special advice and guidance he has given me over the years about Major League Baseball and the Atlanta Braves. But I'm going to leave the baseball experiences with Hank for others to describe and offer a few other views of the many talents of my friend. I got to know Hank in the middle to late 1970s. We spent some time together in the Braves offices working there, and we started playing racquetball together weekly to get some exercise. What a surprise I was in for. Hank could have been a professional racquetball player. People would stop at the back of the court because the sound when he hit the ball. Those wrists and forearms compressed the ball like few around had ever seen. Needless to say, he prevailed in most of our matches, but it was truly unbelievable to watch him play. We spent almost 10 years together on the Turner Broadcasting Board of Directors. In business, he was a quick study and participated heavily in some of the most complex business deals. When Henry spoke, it was like the old E.F. Hutton ads where you could hear a pin drop and everyone listened intently. One board meeting in the late 80s, I came to regret Hank's honesty and straightforwardness. I was delivering a presentation on the state of the Braves that year, and I focused on their offensive capability in the upcoming season, with perhaps a touch of hyperbole. In the middle of my remarks to the board, John Malone interrupted, and he pointed to Hank and he said, "Hank, what's your opinion?" Hank dutifully responded, quote, "The team is so slow it would take 4 singles to score a run." Well, that ended my presentation, and his comments were, of course, spot on. And incidentally, we did not have a very good season. Former board members still laugh about it to this day, and it upheld Hank's reputation in the boardroom as a straight shooter and a great board member. Hank was a senior executive at Turner Broadcasting during my years as CEO. I depended on him greatly for advice and direction for the company, whether it was news, entertainment, sports. He was always on the pulse of everything. We had more stars stopping by the 14th floor of CNN Center to see Hank than we had in our Hollywood movies. He definitely kept it lively. I just learned this last night. In 1990, the newly launched CNN Airport channel was not doing very well. I asked Hank to get involved. I had forgotten about this. Sure enough, in a few months after visiting with airport leaders around the country, the new network took off amazing. So anyone who has ever enjoyed CNN at an airport around the world has Hank Aaron to thank for that. Yes, he was a man of many talents. Hank was an entrepreneur, and his success with his fast food restaurants and car dealerships showed professional athletes across all sports that there was a successful life once they retired. Hank personally ran the Atlanta BMW dealership, as we heard earlier. Where did he find the time? He was a success at selling cars, and I know firsthand because one day I visited the dealership after he told me to come down and pick out any BMW I wanted. He'd make me a great deal. Well, I found a beautiful sports sedan, wrote a check, and drove off. I still have that car, and I cherish it. I will never part with it because it has Hank's personal touch on it. Hank and I traveled to many spring trainings together. We have a tradition of having a dinner at spring training the night before the first full squad workout. Me, Hank, Bill Bartholomew, our manager, general manager, and senior executive staff are regular attendees, and we toast to the new season. Henry always looked forward to that dinner and to each new season, talking to the young players and all the excitement which comes with spring training. It will be very difficult this year without my friend. I and the entire organization will miss him greatly. Thank you.
Dream in days gone by, when the hope was high and life worth living. I dreamed that love would never die. I dreamed that God would be forgiving. Then I was young and unafraid. Dreams were made and used and wasted. There was no ransom to be paid. No song unsung, no wine untasted. For the tigers come at night with their voices soft as thunder, as they tear your hope apart, as they turn your dream to shame. Dream the impossible dream. Fight the unbeatable foe. Bear the unbearable sorrow. To run where the brave dare not go. To right the unrightable wrong. To love pure and chaste from afar. To try when your arms are too weary. To reach the unreachable star. This is my quest, to follow that star. No matter how hopeless, no matter how far, to fight for the right wait with a question upon us, to be willing to march into hell for a heavenly cause. And I know if I only be true to this glorious quest, that my heart will lie peaceful and calm when I'm laid to my rest. For this, that's one man scorned and covered with scars, still strong with his last ounce of courage to reach the unreachable star, to fight the unbeatable foe, to dream the impossible dream.
Mr. Roderick Dixon, thank you for capturing the life legacy of Hank in such a powerful and profound way. At this time, we will continue our reflections. We're grateful to have the Honorable Andrew Young, former ambassador to the United Nations, with us. Thank you, Ambassador Young. The Honorable Jimmy Carter could not be with us, but he will contribute his reflection digitally, the 39th President of the United States. And we're so grateful to have the Honorable William Jefferson Clinton, the 42nd President of the United States, here, who will also share his reflection. Following the organ interlude by our Director of Music Ministries, Dr. James Abingdon, Hank's former pastor and Friendship's beloved Pastor Emeritus, the Reverend Dr. William V. Guy, will bring the eulogy.
You know, it's customary on occasions like this to moan and bemoan the fact that we have lost something. I'm here to testify that Hank ain't gone nowhere. He is grafted in the minds and the hearts of everybody here and everybody looking all around the world. His mama had it right when she called this 12-pound baby boy man. He was and is the man. And he did that without trying. I'm not thinking about baseball here. I'm thinking about the afternoon that the Braves came to town, and he drove down Spring Street, which is now Ted Turner Boulevard. It was two ways then, but he was going south, and I was standing in front of the American Hotel with a bunch of country boys who happened not to be my color. And when he came by sitting on the back of this convertible, they mumbled to each other, "You know, that fella's gonna have to be able to buy a home anywhere he wants to in this town." I said, "Good God Almighty." He said, "We got to be a big league city now." Just his presence before he hit a hit changed this city. And that's one of the good things about baseball. Baseball is not a confrontational sport. Baseball is a sport where your head and your heart and your limbs must align in perfection to hit a little ball coming at you 90 miles an hour. My daddy wanted me to be a baseball player because he played baseball to get through dental school. And so he used to throw the ball to me all the time, throw it on the ground, throw it in the air, cut up a fire hose, a little hose, and give me a broomstick and throw little pieces of hose to try. Said, if you can hit a broomstick with a broomstick, you'll be able to hit a baseball. But I lived in the city. He grew up in the country. There was no place to play baseball in New Orleans. But I learned my philosophy of life from baseball. It was essentially non-confrontational. I just happened to have, as the neighbors on my corner, the German-American Bund, which in the 30s was the headquarters of the Nazi Party, and people were hailing Hitler. And I got the same kind of lessons in New Orleans that Hank got in Mobile. He talked often. It's probably the story I heard him tell most. His mama calling him to come out of the field. And she said, just hurry, get in here. Get under the bed. Because the Klan was riding by. And then when they'd go, she said, all right, you can go on back outside and play ball. But that was a lesson to face the evils of your time with no fear. Just step aside and go on about your business later on. And I think that was the lesson that he learned in baseball. That was the lesson that he taught the Braves. I remember the mayor of Macon brought John Rocca up to see me because John Rocca was a good pitcher, but he had a terrible temper. And when I talked to him a little while, he had a right to be mad. But I'd lived in New York. I'd ridden on the subway. I knew the New York ballpark and how they harassed players. But I said, look, you don't need to talk to me. You need to talk to Mr. Aaron. And I called him and drove him down to that dealership. And I don't know what they said. I left them alone, but it was almost 2.5 hours. But it was just a beginning, and it helped him a lot. But Hank Aaron was the father to almost everybody in the Braves organization. And he and Bill Lucas and Ted Turner and all of the people present made an impact on Atlanta that is global. We have never been the same. And I could go on and on and on. I'll say one more thing, though. We did a film on Hank and Billy. The title of it is Still Hitting Homers. And we're trying to get WSB to show it again this month. And we're sending it out to a couple of hundred stations around the nation. And I was interviewing Hank and Billy, and I said to Hank, how did you get stuck with this sedity broad? I said, here she is, Miss High Class Atlanta. And how'd you bring her down to your level in your courtship? And Billy butt in and said, you forget, I come from Palestine, Texas, and I didn't see an indoor toilet until I was a teenager and went to Dallas for a debate contest. And so you see stars, you see people who have succeeded in everything they have done. But what you really need to see is the heart and mind and spirit of those people. Because it's not privilege, it's not money, it's not even education. There's something about the image of God in each and every human being. And Hank was as relaxed and comfortable with at least 4 presidents that I knew and he knew and loved and helped. But I don't believe there's a Major League Baseball player in existence that has signed as many balls and as many bats and as many autographs as Hank Aaron. And it's hard to write on a baseball. It's hard. I mean, I cannot write on a baseball bat. It's work. And he would sit up there time and time and time and take his time. And my 8-year-old grandson, who says he's going to be the next Hank Aaron, came to him one time and he asked him, he said, Mr. Aaron, I saw your statue, and why is it you hold your hands so funny? We don't hold our hands on the bat that way. And Hank must have taken at least a half hour talking to him about the details of his success to an 8-year-old. That spirit has changed Atlanta and the world and each and every one of you. So the scriptures that we read, don't ever forget. They that wait on the Lord shall renew their strength. They will mount up with wings like eagles. They'll run and not get weary. They will walk and not faint. And the New Testament, since we are surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses, it's an image of a stadium, like Truist Stadium or the old Brave Stadium, where all of those ancestors and heroes that have gone before are standing there, and we are down on the field running the race that is set before us, looking to Jesus, the author and perfecter of our faith. Hank ran the hell out of that race, and he's sitting in the gallery with all of his buddies. The last time, and probably the only time I heard him complain, was, you know, all of my friends and brothers in the old Negro leagues are gone, except me. Well, he's with them now, but he has not left us. He will always be with us, as Martin Luther King is with us, as his mother still whispers in his ear, and as those who loved us and pray for us keep us going and made this the great city that it is. We probably wouldn't be nearly what we are if the Braves hadn't moved here and brought Henry Louis Aaron with them and the spirit of the big league baseball in America and around the world. God has blessed us, and let's be grateful.
Hank Aaron has been a friend of mine for a long time, and a special friend. I was there when he hit his most famous home run, 715, and I gave him a tag for his Cadillac that the Chamber of Commerce gave him. So I gave a $10 tag and the Chamber of Commerce gave him a new Cadillac. He and I became very close friends when he and Billy used to go to Colorado for ski trips. Hank and I both learned how to ski together, and he skied fairly well. I was a little bit better than that on skis, but I talked to Billy, and she was very gracious to me, and I send her my heartfelt condolences on behalf of me and Rosa. We've lost a good friend and a great athlete. Best wishes to you, Hank Aaron, and to Billy, his wife, and all the family. Thank you very much.
Reverend Willis, Reverend Guy, I thank you for welcoming all of us to friendship today, and I thank my longtime friend, Reverend Otis Moss, for his invocation, and Andy Young, I could listen to talk till tomorrow morning, but if we just hang on long enough, we're going to say goodbye to everybody we know. I want to thank all the speakers who have said the wonderful things they've said about Hank. I want to thank Billy for keeping his eye on the ball for so long, and for being such a good friend to Hillary and me. I thank his children and grandchildren for reminding us that we never die if the spirit we have lives on through others. I was very moved when Billy asked me to talk about Hank. You know, I'm just a baseball fan, not an authority. We didn't get a television in my home till 1957. And by the way, Andy, I may be the last president to have lived on a farm without an indoor toilet. It's a good story in politics, but it's way overrated, as anybody can tell you. It's cold in the winter, and if you're a Southerner, there's snakes in the summer. You got to. I got that TV in time for the 57th season, and I saw this young Hank Aaron win the MVP. The Braves win the World Series. And from the time I was in grade school till the time I was a grown man, when Hank retired, I believe that Hank Aaron's greatness as a baseball player was just a part of the ordinary fabric of American life, you know. Spring would come, the trees would blossom, the birds would chirp, and Aaron would begin wearing out the pitchers. It was a blessing. But you don't have to be a baseball fan to know that for all the great players who have played, no one was as consistently great for as long. And if you listen to what everybody said here today, it was a tribute to a consistent life of caring and doing and being a certain way. A lot of people have a great year. But you know, even after all this time, he still has the record for most RBIs, a record for most bases that may never be reached. Still the only person to hit 20 home runs in 20 years, and one of only two to hit 30 home runs in 15 years. These things say something about what was going on inside. Yes, God gave him a strong body and a sharp mind and an iron will, but he worked hard to nurture them. It seemed to me from the outside, even before I met him, that he never got too high or too low. He never seemed puffed up when he was banging a lot of home runs. It was like he always knew the gift could go away, and you could never take it for granted. And then when he was in a slump, he always seemed confident at the plate, like the slump was just one swing away from being over. And it's been said, by the time he retired in 1976, he was the last major leaguer to have played in the old Negro Leagues. I spent a lot of time in that museum in Kansas City. I've read every book that I think's been printed on Satchel Paige. I think about all that talent that never had a chance to bloom and be seen and be felt. He felt that. That was a big part of his life, wanting to make sure that all the young people, including the magnificent young woman who spoke today, never had to stay in a separate league, but got a chance to shine. when he retired from baseball, instead of becoming the man who used to be Hank Aaron, he just chased other dreams. He aspired to succeed in business and acquire the means to help others do things with their lives, and he did. He aspired to help young people overcome the barriers that he'd had to overcome by himself. And as you heard today, through the Chasing the Dream Foundation, he did. He aspired to close the racial divide, not by tearing anybody down, but by lifting people up. Not by demeaning people, but by opening their minds and opening their eyes and opening their hearts. And he did. And for that work, Billy was the best teammate he ever could have had. It was during this phase of their lives that I had a chance to finally meet Hank Aaron. I was running for president in 1992. It was getting down to the end. I had had a healthy lead, and then it was getting tight. People said, you know, where's Arkansas? And that guy's 12 years old. I mean, can we trust him with being president? And buyer's remorse was starting to set in. And everybody said I needed to go back to these states where I had been winning, like Wisconsin and a lot of the states in the upper Midwest. And Andy was reminding me today, and I said, well, first thing we're going to do is go to Georgia. And they said, there's no way you can win Georgia. And I said, I spent more time there than all of these advisors. And besides, they say if I'll come back, that Senator Nunn and Congressman John Lewis and Andy and Maynard Jackson, who's still around, and Zell Miller, they said, Hank Aaron will come out there and endorse you. And we'll fill a football stadium. And they did. They filled a suburban football stadium with 25,000 people. And Hank was a big draw. I just sort of was on the program. And I'll never forget how he spoke that day and what he said. He didn't sound like a politician. He just got up and said, look, this is why I think we should give this guy a chance to lead the country. This is what we need. He grew up like most of us did. He knows what needs to be done. He knows we need to go forward together. He knows that if we don't do that, we're never going to lift ourselves from the bottom up. He was unbelievable, just talking to people. And 3 days later, after that 25,000 person rally, I carried Georgia by 13,000 votes. And for the rest of his life, he never let me forget who was responsible for winning. Hank Aaron never bragged about anything except carrying Georgia for me in 1992, and he probably did. I say that because I came here to testify as a friend. I've taken every chance I could to be with Hank and Billy over the years, and Hillary and I've had some wonderful times. I loved attending their 65th and 75th birthday parties, and I believe I saw him on his 80th birthday party. And they spent the night with us at the White House, and it seemed like the most natural thing in the world. It's just like having your friends over, because I got him. It's interesting that he was so protective of baseball and its integrity. And I think one reason is, in spite of all the racism and all the threats and all the terrible things that happened to him, when he was about to break the home run record, he knew when he was playing it, baseball was on the level. If you got a hit, they couldn't say you didn't. If you caught a fly, they couldn't say you didn't. If you had a good arm from the field and you threw somebody out, they couldn't say you didn't. And they kept score. And in a world, you know, if you were an African American when Hank Aaron was young, and even now in too many places, as we saw from the names that were on the screen, there's still so many days when people wonder if anything will ever be on the level again. Baseball did that for him. Amidst all the racism, nobody fooled with his numbers. He could still hit the ball. He could still run the bases. He could still throw people out. And he treated other people like he knew they needed and deserved the same things, whether they could play baseball or not. He wanted everybody to have their baseball, some way to be on the level, to be seen for who they were, to be judged for what they were. That's his legacy to me. I wasn't with Hank Aaron 5 minutes before I thought, I'm going to love this guy for the rest of my life. He is totally on the level. He will look at me and see it all. When I make a mistake, he'll know it. Then if I ask him, he'll say it. But his heart is good and wise. I'll never forget the 25th anniversary of dinner you had here in Atlanta of Hank's breaking the home run record. And we were sitting together, and I flew down from Washington. I still had a couple of years left in the White House, and there were so many great ball players there. But we were sitting at dinner, and I thought, I kind of gave him a chance to brag. I wanted to see if he'd brag about anything but electing me in '92. And I said, who's the best ball player you ever played with or against? He said, oh, Willie Mays. He said he had the best arm from center field of anybody except Roberto Clemente. He could run like a deer. He could hit like a demon. And he said he probably would have broken Babe Ruth's record too if the Giants hadn't moved to San Francisco. He said, in Candlestick Park, the wind always blows against you. He said, good Lord himself couldn't hit a home run out of Candlestick Park. But the point is, instead of having the opportunity to revel, he was trying to find some way to be generous to somebody else who was not even there because he was down on his back. That's the way he was. We never talked very much about baseball or very much about politics. When we were together, we'd always be talking about your foundation or mine and the people we were trying to help. And he was really interested in what we did in Africa, and that small farmers in Africa, often their definition of a small farm was a half an acre, a quarter of an acre. And people would actually make a living and live off of it for a year. I will never forget visiting you a few years ago at your home in Florida and just sitting there like old friends, talking and talking and talking, always looking to the future and to the young people. And I will never forget the chuckles we got when we were at Tyler Perry's dedication of the magnificent studio complex he built here. We decided we were the designated senior citizens. Everybody else was kind of young and cool, and there were Hank and Billy and Hillary and me just kind of walking along, trying to figure out who was who, trying to be embarrassed if we didn't really know, or not be embarrassed. I'm telling you this because the longer life went on for Hank Aaron, the more graceful he became. You can be graceful in a body, but if you want to be a ballerina, you've got to train your grace. Same thing is true as a person. You can naturally have a feeling for grace, but you have to train it. his children and grandchildren must know that he was a real life, flesh and blood man. He felt his anger. He felt his bitterness. He felt his resentment. But I think one reason he never got rid of those boxes of hate mail he got, first they just spurred him on to break the home run record. But then I think he kept it to remind himself that grace is not the absence of anger or resentment. It is the conscious choice not to surrender to them. A choice every human being has to make every day. Hank Aaron knew that in every heart he encountered, there were scales that sometimes tilted toward darkness and sometimes toward light, and that the state of grace required the will and heart to tilt them toward light. And that required love. Too many preachers here for me to quote a lot of scripture, but St. Paul said in my most important scripture in Galatians 6:9 that in this life we must never grow weary in doing good, for in due season we shall reap. He did not grow weary. His season has come. Those of us who loved him wish it would have never come. But that is not a fate any of us can ever claim. Our season always comes. And he has now reaped. His whole life, as I said, was one long home run. And now he has rounded the bases. One of the things I love most about black churches is referring to these services as homegoings. Do not forget that. You can hurt, you can miss him. He loved you more than life. That's a gift some people never feel, even for 5 minutes. May it sustain you. He is home. Hallelujah.
Pastor Wills, President Clinton, Ambassador Young, Mrs. Billy Suber Aaron, to the children, grandchildren, members of the Aaron family, with whom we share our great loss, but also our great celebration. And to friends who have joined in this service electronically. Mrs. Aaron, you must forgive me, please. I guess COVID-19 does not allow us to sing. But let's stand for a moment, please. Just stand if you feel up to it. Stand where you are. Move your shoulders, and if you want to reach up, do that. Thank you. It's been rich, and it would be great to hear us all singing together. You may be seated. And he shall be like a tree planted by the rivers of water that brings forth its fruit in its season. His leaf also shall not wither, and whatever he does shall prosper. The third verse of the first Psalm of the Bible gives us our image as we think of Hammerin Hank Aaron, a tree by the river. He shall be like a tree that brings forth its fruit in its season. The tens of thousands of tributes that have come forward over these past few days attest to the fruitfulness of Hammerin Aaron's life. His fruitfulness, yes, as a ball player, but his fruitfulness on and off the field. His fruitfulness in baseball goes way back in his childhood. I had the pleasure of being at a dinner, an occasion that honored Henry, and one of the speakers was a childhood friend. And he spoke of how the two of them, as boys, played baseball, and he would pitch an old beat-up baseball to Henry, and Henry would use a homemade bat that had been formed from a tree limb, and he'd hit the ball high in a high arch so that it would come down on a nearby barn. And while the ball was in the air, he would run and get on the other side of that barn. And when the ball hit the roof and bounced off, he was there to catch it. His prowess showed even in childhood. And we know that he was only 17 when he became a professional baseball player. But his fruitfulness did not stop with his athletic prowess. Indeed, his achievements after retirement as a businessman were outstanding, are there for us still to see. We see in Hank a lesson, therefore, in fruitfulness, a fruitfulness that results from his excellence, his consistency of performance. And he shall be like a tree whose leaf shall not wither. Hank certainly had plenty of occasions for the leaves of his tree to wither. We know about his challenges, not only to reach the top as a baseball player, but his challenges because of our social attitudes and structures of segregation. The racial vitriol increased the closer he got to that seemingly unattainable goal of Babe Ruth and the home runs. And the closer he got to breaking that barrier, the more the hatred showed itself. And we know now that Henry was subjected to threats for his life, and that the safety of his family was imperiled. And yet, through all of that, he was fruitful in just doing his job. He let his bat speak for him. And because he did so, we all enjoy a better world, not only in the sports world, but in our society. We learn then, as we remember Henry, we learn something from his courage. And we know that as a tree, his leaf did not wither under pressure. He shall be like a tree. Whatever he does shall prosper. Well, I think our psalmist poet would allow that even the God-fearing life is going to have disappointment and trouble, and perhaps not count on everything to be a success. But in his poetic way, he said everything, whatever he does, he will prosper. But that prosperity, I believe, of which the psalmist wrote, was not just about physical possessions. It was a prosperity that pointed to the inside, where one becomes prosperous in the soul, even as one lives a life amid turmoil and rejection. Hank would probably be the first one to say that his later blessings after retiring as a player, the prosperity that came to him through his business ventures, he would be the first to say, I'm sure, it was a blessing of God. Similarly, he would have said that whatever he did, he would have to attribute to God in his grace. In his prosperity, he never forgot the poverty of his youth. He never turned his eyes from the needs around him. And then came a new prosperity in his life. He met Billy Suber Williams then. And from their marriage came a new approach to handling modest prosperity. Like two trees, Hank and Billy joined their underground roots as in a mango tree grove, where those trees underneath and out of sight grow together because their roots have been interwoven. And in their union, we see a new and creative way of giving, of organizing their assets to be able to make philanthropic contributions that are extraordinary for a black couple in our country. They were loyal members of Friendship Baptist Church, and I was privileged to be their pastor when we were in the old building. And as their pastor, I was privy to some of the anonymous gifts that they made, especially at Christmas time, to needy families in our church and in our community. And over the years, that giving developed in a more organized fashion. And as their prosperity grew, their giving grew, so that they were great supporters of black institutions, like the United Negro College Fund, of which Billy was a principal fundraiser, like Morehouse College or the Morehouse School of Medicine that has been mentioned, to name a few. And then there was the establishment of what I think was their favorite, the Chase the Dream Foundation, which aids children of minority homes in getting an education. And whatsoever he doeth, he shall prosper. Again, a lesson that we see in the tree, Hank Aaron, in handling what little prosperity we may have. And lastly, he shall be like a tree planted by rivers of water. And here's the fundamental feature of the Old Testament tree that is mentioned here, and that we are saying represents one like Henry Aaron. It is planted by moving water, streams that are clear, that give nourishment as well as coolness and refreshment to the living tree. Henry attributed his spiritual grounding to his parents. They taught him and his siblings, he has said, that they should do unto others as you would have them do unto you. That has been my philosophy, he once said. And because he took that fundamental Christian teaching to heart, we have been able to admire in him humbleness, his kindness, his steady courage. Henry was once asked by an interviewer, "How would you like to be remembered?" And he answered not by saying, referring to his home runs or the stats that made him one of the truly great players of all time. He said instead, well, I'd like to be remembered as somebody who helped some kids go to college. Such was his own humility, but his own vision and perception that the future rests within our youth, and the greater exposure they have in their growing up and education, the greater their people and our nation will be. We remember him, yes, for what he did for college kids, but far more than that, he is in our minds and will remain with us. He was a giant redwood in our midst. And in its height, we see his height of character, his high reach of achievement. He was a huge oak around us because he spread out the limbs that showed his concern for fairness and for justice and for raising the economic station of people. He is our lesson in excellence, in courage, in humility, in faith. We thank God for Hammerin Hank Aaron, our tree by the river. God bless you.
Thank you, Dr. Guy, for the eloquence of spoken word and for giving us an appreciation of Hank's life as you unfolded it and allowed us to view his life through the lens of his great faith. We thank you. We're grateful for each of the participants. I know the family and those who share with us via streaming technology appreciate the opportunity you have given us, the privilege which was ours, to celebrate the life legacy of Hank Aaron. We acknowledge the presence of our mayor, the Honorable Keisha Lance Bottoms. Your presence speaks volumes. Thank you for your presence today. At this time, the love of Hank's life, Mrs. Billy Suber Aaron, will come and share acknowledgments and her own personal expressions of her appreciation to each of you.
For 47 years, Henry and I walked this journey together. A journey that ended on a Friday morning when we were not able to awaken him. He had slept into eternity. I thank God for the opportunity to be his wife. Our little lives, our big problems have collided in a place of sorrow where our darkest night has overtaken us and consumed our every waiting hour. Yet from day to day and from moment to moment, you have comforted us. You have stood by our side. You have helped us get through these past few days. You have encouraged us to remember that our lives are in God's hand and that we must find strength and solace in that. God is our help and our strength, and he will always be there with us. I want to thank you and acknowledge your presence here today and tell you how much we appreciate all of your many acts of kindness. We know that this pandemic has been horrific, but you chose today to brave the weather and take the risk. And I pray that you will continue to follow all of the guidance and instructions for wearing your mask and keeping yourself safe. Thank you, President Clinton. Thank you, Commissioner Bud Selig. Thank you, Andy, and thank you all for participating in this homegoing for Henry. It means so much to us. May God be with you. May he bless you. And may he keep you in the palm of his hand until we meet again. Please keep each other, keep us all in your prayers. Thank you.
And so let us pray. Again, our God, we thank you for the privilege which was indeed ours to share with this wife, this precious family, these friends and colleagues, each remembrance of the life legacy of your servant and our brother beloved, Henry Louis Aaron. We need you now as we proceed from this place. You have assured us that this earth would have no sorrow that you and your heaven would not heal. Sustain us now with a strength that you alone can provide. And so now may the God of peace, who brought again by the blood of the eternal covenant, equip us with everything good, that we now may do his will, working in us that which is pleasing in his sight. Through Jesus Christ, to whom be glory forever and ever. Amen. And amen.
You've been watching our coverage of the private funeral services for Henry Hank Aaron. We have been following this story for you since his passing on Friday morning, and this is the culmination of those services. We heard from several dignitaries, friends, people whose lives were forever changed and touched by Hank Aaron.
A homegoing service that lasted almost 3 hours. It began at 1 o'clock this afternoon. We heard many marvelous speeches, among them President Clinton, who said that Hank Aaron's whole life was one long home run, and now he has rounded the bases. President Clinton's speech moving and stirring. Few can make a speech like that, eloquent, conversational, and memorable, my goodness. We also heard from former Mayor and Ambassador Andrew Young, who spoke that the Atlanta that we see today in 2021 would not have been possible without the Braves moving to Atlanta in 1966, and of course Hank Aaron being part of that roster. That Braves team that came down here meant so much for generations and changed so much for generations.
He did. He actually said just his presence, speaking of Hank Aaron, saying just his presence before he hit a hit changed this city of Atlanta. And I would think that so many people would agree and are grateful just for his life and legacy and the impact that he's had on the city of Atlanta.
We also heard from Bob Costas, a play-by-play voice and a member of the Baseball Hall of Fame, sportscaster at NBC for many years, as he spoke of his relationship and the meaning of Hank Aaron's life in America. Tom Johnson also speaking, the former president of CNN, Alan Tannenbaum, the local attorney and secretary of the Hank Aaron Chasing the Dream Foundation. Mr. Tannenbaum was the agent and the attorney for Mr. Aaron for many, many years. Bud Selig coming down from his native Milwaukee, a very emotional Bud Selig, who himself is now 86 years of age, talking about his friendship that spanned almost 70 years, in which they would speak repeatedly during the course of the week. We also saw President Carter for the first time that we have seen him in many, many months, and he spoke of his great friendship with Hank Aaron and the meaning of Mr. Aaron's life in our state, in our country, and the difference that he made.
Yeah, a lot of poignant words there and a lot of remembrances, a lot of people just speaking of the beauty of the life that was lived by Hank Aaron and what he has meant to so many people, not just here in Atlanta, but across the nation as well.
Hank Aaron will now be buried at Southview Cemetery, according to the family. He will be placed in a temporary crypt at Southview until his final resting place is completed in a few weeks. We've talked about the meaning of Southview. In 1886, 9 African-American businessmen came together and they bought a parcel of land when there was no place that Black Atlantans could be buried. They were not welcome in white cemeteries. Thus, Southview was born, and it is a who's who of Black Atlanta and really a history of our city. All